What's going on? This is the Snodgrass podcast. Thank you guys for joining me today. I have Darrell Amy on this podcast with me, and he has wrote a book called The Revenue Growth Engine. So do you guys want to grow your revenue? I know that I do, and I just had a conversation after the show with Darrell about growing our revenue with Iron Deep and with our real estate business. So this is what he does. He loves growing businesses and their revenue to impact kingdom mission projects, and he talks about that on this particular show too. Just an awesome down-to-earth guy, just wanting to make an impact for the kingdom. So stay tuned for Darrell Amy. Before I introduce him, make sure you guys go over to our website at irondeep.com. We got the wheels turning behind the scenes, guys. We are brainstorming on what is next for Iron Deep. We had our men's awakening. It was amazing. It was in the Rocky Mountains. We had 30 guys there, and it was off the hook. Business owners. It was crazy, amazing. God showed up. Now we're just talking about what does this community look like. We're brainstorming on putting things together, what our next events are going to look like. We're going to do very unique, impactful, faith-driven, entrepreneurial types of events. It's going to be really, really cool. So check that out on irondeep.com. You can also go over to our YouTube channel and check out all the videos that we have coming out each week. We typically put a very creative type of video out each month right now, and we're going to be increasing that volume as we move forward here. So check that out on our Iron Deep YouTube channel. Now I want to introduce you to Darrell Amy. All right, I got a guest on today's podcast, Darrell Amy from Arkansas. First, I think you might be my first guest from Arkansas, Darrell.
Fantastic. That's good. I'm a Canadian that married a Southern girl, and so that's what happens, Brett. Glad to be here.
Yes, that's awesome. I always like just new things and new states to bring people on the show. So thanks for being here, man. I'm super excited about this show. You do a lot, number one. You're a business entrepreneur for several years. You're helping other businesses scale their businesses. You love to impact kingdom businesses. You're in the nonprofit field with Kingdom Missions Fund. You're doing expeditions with men and the wild crazy, and helping pour into men. So, but I just want to, I know you do a lot, man. So, but we're really going to dial this down. You have a book called Revenue Growth Engine, and we're really going to dial this into really how to grow our revenue, especially in kingdom businesses. But let's just kind of like give a little summary of who is Darrell Amy.
Thank you, Brett. It's great to be here. And I am really passionate. If you boil it all down, all of these things I have in common. I'm passionate about helping generous business owners, generous entrepreneurs grow their business so they can make more of an impact. And 18 years ago, I got to be a part of starting the Kingdom Missions Fund, funding innovation in missions, kind of like the Shark Tank for Christian missions projects that are smart, sustainable, and scalable. And so in doing that and working as a volunteer and board member in that over the last couple decades, what I began to notice was while we have lots of wonderful donors that are individuals and all of that, when it comes time to really move the needle, the people that are really able to move the needle are business owners, entrepreneurs that are able to grow their business successfully and grow enough that they've got the resources to be able to be generous. And so inside all of that, my passion in looking at the businesses that I've worked with over the last couple of decades is where are the business owners, where are the entrepreneurs, where are the people that want to grow their business so they can make an impact? And I say, hey, look, it takes resources to make an impact. So as kingdom-minded entrepreneurs, we owe it. We owe it to the impact we want to leave to be able to maximize the revenue coming out of our business. And so that's animated everything that I've done in my career, all that I'm doing right now with Revenue Growth Engine, coming alongside generous business owners and saying, hey, let's put the engine in place that is going to allow you to accelerate your growth so you can make more impact.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where you come in. You talk about this revenue engine, and I started getting into your book, and you started to describe this engine that really accelerates your growth. You talk about exponential revenue growth. Let's just kind of start there. So I think you talk about the law of exponential revenue growth. Like, can you take us into that? Like, what does that mean? And take us into some of the core principles of that.
Absolutely. And Brett, this is super simple and extremely powerful. And And it comes down to a realization that there are actually two ways and only two ways to grow revenue in your business. We're either getting more customers or we're selling more to our current customers. In Revenue Growth Engine, we talk about net new business and cross-sell business. What are we doing to grow market share and then grow wallet share? If you really boil it down, those are the only two ways to grow revenue. Even if you say, well, Darrell, I'm acquiring other businesses. Great. Well, once you acquire that business, you need to grow net new business, need to grow cross-sell revenue. So here is the realization out of that. If you're able to show modest growth in each one of these areas, say like 12 to 15% in net new business, your number of customers, and 12 to 15% growth in cross-sell revenue. That's measured in revenue per customer. If you can do both of those at the same time, that modest 12 to 15% growth in each one of these areas actually results in doubling revenue somewhere between 24 and 36 months. And that, if you just think about that modest growth in both of those areas simultaneously could put your business in a place where you have organically doubled revenue in 36 months. I don't know about you, but that gets me excited.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge, Brett. The challenge is as we go into most businesses, and I've had the opportunity to literally work with hundreds of businesses, helping them develop growth plans. What we've discovered is most businesses tend to be good at one or the other. They tend to be good at net new. Hey, we can go out, we can grab the new logos, we can ring the bell, write it on the sales board. We're good at growing net new business. But as one of the clients we were working with recently, we started asking about their cross-sell revenue and what happens after they get a new client.
Yeah.
They said, well, Darrell, that's what we call the black hole. I started laughing. But you realize that there's a lot of businesses that are good at net new and not good at cross-sell. There are other businesses that are really, really good at managing their client relationships and growing inside their client base. But let's just be honest, it's been a long time since you added a new customer. And so what I would say is, the question to everybody listening in, first of all, is your business better at getting net new or are you better at cross-selling? And then the one you're not good at, keep doing the one you're good at. The one you're not good at, let's put processes in place, or for my fellow Canadian friends, let's put the processes in place to allow you to get good and consistent at the area you're not good at. Because when you get both of those going at the same time, exponential revenue growth, you can double revenue in literally 24 to 36 months with modest growth in each one of those areas.
Yeah. And I like that because I was just thinking about my own businesses. Like, what am I, honestly? And if you're listening out there, you're probably thinking the same thing. What am I? Am I good at getting new customers or just really pouring in to the customers and clients that I already have? And I would say for me, I think I'm more of the new customer. Like, I like to have the logos and we have this big launch and it's great.
The kill, right? Yeah.
For example, that's the thing that I've been actually thinking about now. We just had this Men's Awakening, this Iron Deep, this great event. Everyone's really excited. But then I come home and I'm like, okay, well now, how do we keep pouring into these guys? And that's where the systems and processes coming into place. So typically you kind of identify, you're aware of that, and how do you help that business get better at the weakest of that area?
Well, so what we need to build is an engine, and every business has an engine. And Brett, this all came about. The Revenue Growth Engine was published a couple of years ago, the summer of 2020, and the whole idea came about from mowing my lawn. Now, I know every success guru says don't do work, or Gino Wickman at the EOS conference, or it was speaking a couple months back, said don't do $25 an hour work, pay someone to do that. However, I make exception with my lawn because two things. First of all, while I'm mowing my lawn, I get to listen to incredible podcasts like this, and no one can interrupt me with a phone call or email. And the second reason I like to mow my lawn is having worked with businesses all day on strategy, and sometimes you just don't always see the immediate results. But when I'm done mowing my lawn, Brett, I can see the straight lines. I feel good. So anyhow, one day I'm mowing my lawn, and you get great ideas like this. I'm mowing my lawn. I'm puttering across my lawn in my 60-inch zero-turn lawnmower. And I'm realizing I see my car at the end of the driveway, and I realize in this moment of insight, my lawnmower has an engine and my car has an engine. In fact, if I wanted to drive from where I am right now to come see you, I could probably jump on my lawnmower, point it in the right direction, and I would eventually get there. It might be slow, might be very dangerous, and it'd probably be mocked mercilessly along the freeway as I'm puttering along in my lawnmower. I might die too, but so I'm not going to do that because I have a car, and my lawnmower, by the way, I looked it up, has a 28.5 horsepower engine. Great for a lawnmower. My car has a 420 horsepower engine. So here's the deal. Every business has an engine driving growth. If you have a business, you have an engine. The question is, how many cylinders are in that engine, right? My lawnmower has 2 cylinders. My car has 8. So which one is going to get you there faster? And the premise behind Revenue Growth Engine is basically, let's, look at your business and realize that you may be like an engine not firing on all cylinders. Let's add the cylinders in that are going to allow you to accelerate. And when I talk about cylinders, really what I'm thinking in the back of my mind is, where are the processes? Where are the series of steps for repeatable outcome that you can put in place in your business, that you can spread through playbooks so that they're followed by all, and everybody is able to look at it and know exactly what to do at each stage of the buyer's journey and the customer experience. We call it the ideal client experience in the book. So the idea is basically to say, look, your business has an engine. It's not firing on all cylinders. You need to probably build some cylinders. And if you do that, you've got the potential to accelerate the growth of your business and make that acceleration sustainable.
Yeah. What are some of the common cylinders that people typically are neglecting or that you're digging into right away that you can really sometimes right when you get in, you do a couple of tweaks here and there, add one cylinder, and you're like, bam! Is there something that you're digging into typically?
Yeah,
that's obvious.
Yeah. Let me share a couple common ones. And by the way, if anyone listening in wants to get the Revenue Growth Engine book, if you just text the word revenue to 21,000, you'll get access to our toolkit. And you'll also be able to order the book. If you'll pay shipping and handling, I'd be happy to get an autographed copy your way. Awesome. So just text revenue to 21,000. But one of the ideas for Crosssell, you mentioned in your business, hey, we're good at going and getting the deal, but not so good at Crosssell. I get that. I've got a sales background. I came out of technology sales in the B2B space. We were taught to go land the deals. But when it comes to expanding, especially for our clients in B2B and also in most B2C, one of the biggest, easiest to implement and most powerful strategies, cylinders, if you will, or processes that you can put in place is a quarterly business review with your ideal clients. Now, in the book, we talk about ideal clients, and we can unpack that more later if you'd like. Those are the 20% of your clients that drive 80% of your revenue. The good old Pareto principle in full effect. But if you think about those top 20% of clients, what are you doing to engage with them on a regular basis? Now, my very first sales job, I walked in and it was a mantra all across the company. It said, we want every client to be 100% sold. 100% sold. And that means that every client is buying every product from us that they can buy from us. They're fully realizing all of the value from our organization, as my favorite marketing guru, Jay Abraham, would say, the best and highest value. Well, to get to 100% sold, we need to realize that when we close that first sale, we're not actually closing a deal, we're opening a relationship. And so we need to have, in any relationship, there needs to be some cadence of engagement, right? If you're married, I hope you have a cadence of engagement with your wife. Hope you're taking our anniversary trips and hopefully a date of some kind periodically. Otherwise, you're going to have a date, but it's going to be with an attorney and it's not going to be fun. So you need periodic engagement, right, with a relationship to sustain it. So if you think about your clients, and I'm thinking in particular, your ideal clients, those top 20%, what are you doing on a regular basis to add value? And so we coach you in the book on how to implement a quarterly business review process in a way that if you skip one, your clients will actually call you and go, "Hey, Brett, we didn't do our quarterly conversation. What's going on?" That's how you know you're doing a good job on it. And so a lot of companies, we were coached through the years in sales to do quarterly business reviews that were terribly boring. We would go in and review our performance and our service level agreements and talk about other problems. Here's what I want you to do to start your next quarterly business review, is I want you to say, "Hey, Brett, we want to stay in touch and make sure we are in tune with what's going on in your organization. We also are working with other companies similar to yours and are seeing a lot of trends. So I'm curious, what are the top initiatives and challenges you have going on in your business right now?" And start the conversation there, and then bring insight from your other client experiences. And I guarantee you that what's going to happen in those conversations is two things, maybe three. First, you're going to build credibility and deepen the relationship. Second, as you talk about the challenges and initiatives that are going on inside that business, you're going to create additional business opportunities. And by doing this and taking good care of your clients, you're going to earn the right to get referrals. And with your top 20% of your clients, guess who they know? They know other clients, prospects like them, which are probably your ideal prospects. So that one thing of just going, okay, I'm going to take my top 20% of customers, I'm going to commit as a habit to do a quarterly conversation. You could call it a quarterly business review. You can call it a strategy review. You can call it a quarterly insights and strategy meeting, whatever you want to do to make it sound interesting. The important thing is listen and drive conversation around what's going on in their business and their life. And then you're going to see a lot of things open up. So that right there is hands down probably the easiest to implement and the biggest piece of low-hanging fruit in virtually every organization we've walked into.
Yeah. It's you're right. It's very simple, but again, I start to think about, do I do that in my business? And I do that sometimes, but I also am just inconsistent. I think that's where the process and system comes into place.
Bingo.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that if our listeners, they're probably thinking the exact same thing. And why don't you think people do that more? Do they just take them for granted? Sometimes I feel like, the people that bring us the most business, or even the people closest to me, like my family or friends, are the ones that sometimes I'm like, man, I take for granted or something. And why do you think that we don't do that more?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think it is something to really think about for everybody listening is, why don't we do that more? I would say a couple of reasons. One is it hasn't become a habit. Like every good thing in life, when it comes to eating well, exercising, spiritual disciplines. I mean, you just go down the list of all the different things that you want in life that are good. They require consistency and habits. And so, good intention. I don't think there's anybody listening in that goes, I don't like my current clients. I couldn't care less about their business, right? Everybody has good intentions on it. The question is, do you have good habits? And are those habits, especially if you have an organization with a sales team, in this case, are those habits backed up with process that is measured and tracked? So for example, if that were rolling up to a scorecard, you would say percent of ideal clients that we did a quarterly business review with this quarter. And that gets to the dashboard. What gets measured gets managed. And, so I think that's one reason. We all have good intentions. It's got to be backed up with habits. And the second thing is, I think it has to do with training. And so if you look at, if you're the entrepreneur, the business owner, the founder, the C-suite person in your business, you probably feel really, really comfortable walking in, having that strategic conversation with anybody, right? But the question is, does your sales team feel comfortable doing that? And what are you doing to equip your sales team to be able to have those conversations? I'm also a co-host on the Selling from the Heart podcast and a partner in the sales training business there, where we're equipping reps with skills to build trust. And so what we've discovered is our trust formula. And the foundation of the trust formula is, if you want trust, and by the way, you want trust, you need trust with your clients and prospects, you need to build authentic relationship and deliver meaningful value. So which means authentic relationship, you've got to invest some time in that. to build a relationship. Value, you've got to do some training to understand what value is. And in Revenue Growth Engine, I say this over and over again. Need to go through and count how many times I say this. Buyers don't buy products and services. They buy the outcomes your products and services enable. Mm-hmm. So, here's the deal. You've got a whole suite of products and services, but every client that you work with has specific outcomes that they want in their business. Mm. So we've been training our salespeople about products and services and product knowledge, and they need to know that. But the other side of the coin is they need to understand the outcomes that their clients want. And in the B2B space, where I spend most of my time, the word for that is business acumen. They need to be able to understand business and what's going on in the business world, in their client's industry, and in their client's business, so they can build a bridge between the product and the outcome the client wants. So I think that's a long answer to just basically say, well, we, expect our salespeople to do this. There's not a process in place. It's not measured. And we haven't coached them on how to have this level of business conversation. Mm. So if you get the process in place, you have a measurement, and you're coaching your reps, you're going to be in a lot better place to realize cross-sell revenue.
Yeah. I mean, really just kind of speaking to, it's just such a relationship business, and it's just kind of training that down. And you're right. I mean, we teach our sales reps to get the deal, but we don't teach them to have these types of meaningful connections and conversations. It's something, a lot of businesses don't train. So thank you so much for that. This is awesome. So all of this is in Darrell's book, Revenue Growth Engine. So make sure you guys get that. Darrell, again, we talked a lot about, you do a lot of different things, and one of your passions is just impacting kingdom business leaders. And I want to just talk about that for a little bit, because I think you talk about the Kingdom Missions Fund, and this is something that really lights you up, and it probably just keeps your engine going, right? Your fire going every single day you wake up, and you're really passionate about that. And can you talk to us about that? And what have you kind of seen happen? And all this is correlated, which I love, is you do a lot, but it all is kind of linked together. Like, you help business owners accelerate revenue, and then they can be more generous and give more to missions and more kingdom, right? And it's just all linked together. Can you kind of take us into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I do, I just want to give a shout out to an organization that I just discovered called Generous Giving, generousgiving.org, that leads people on journeys of generosity. If you're an entrepreneur, and that's who listens to this podcast, business leader, I want you to check out generousgiving.org and go on the journey of generosity. Because here's the deal. What I noticed in the kingdom, in missions in particular, there's some people out there, some of the best and most creative entrepreneurs on the planet are working in Christian missions right now.
Yeah, I know.
And, they're out solving problems in parts of the world where the problems are big, the resources are limited. And this all began for me, Brett, 18, 19 years ago, when the co-founder of the Kingdom Missions Fund, who's an elder at my church, made me go on a missions trip. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to think that I was, one of those people that signed up to do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I was a regional manager for a Japanese technology company. I was traveling, visiting fine Marriotts all over the United States, and taking people out to dinner. And so I got invited on this missions trip to go build homes and orphanage in Honduras. And, I was and the invitation came, I was like, yeah, I see if I can fit that in my schedule. Right. And so kept getting closer and closer to the trip. And Paul came to me one day, and he wanted me to go check this out, because my family, I grew up in the construction business. So anyhow, we're getting close to the trip. And finally, Paul says, hey, are you going to go on this thing? It's like in 3 weeks. And I said, I don't know. He goes, well, we'll pay for it. I'm like, you don't have to pay for it. I'll go. And so I remember flying to Houston and then getting on a plane to Tegucigalpa, a city whose name I didn't know how to pronounce, language I didn't know how to speak, looking out the window of the airplane going, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? But obviously, while God was there, he changed my heart. When I got home, I was like, how do these people fund all this stuff? Like, how do they pay for it? They're living in a mountain, down a dirt road that you can barely drive on. How do they raise money? So we ended up out of that, long story short, starting the Kingdom Missions Fund. And the idea behind it was we wanted to create a sustainable funding source for missions. And what we realized was that, the way the most missions raise money, which is, to send letters and emails out and go, hey, will you give money to us, is good. But is there a way that missions could do things and raise funds in a way that was smart, sustainable, and scalable? So that maybe even someday they didn't have to ask for money, or if the flow of funds from, east to west got shut off for whatever reason, they would have a sustainable program. So we started taking applications from organizations 18 years ago saying, hey, what are you doing out there? We were looking for the best and brightest ideas. So it was kind of like Shark Tank, except a little nicer. We didn't tell people that they were dead to us and all of that. Right. But we get in on average about 50 grant applications every year for innovative missions projects. We get a great team that filters those down, and we usually award about 10 to 12 grants per year. Wow. We've been able to fund over 200 projects over the last 18 years. And what's happening, and this is what I think is so cool, and the parallel to the business world. And by the way, we've got a lot of generous business owners that are getting behind this and going, that's something I can get behind. That's entrepreneurial. That makes sense. I could give money to a project that's going to maybe, create something that spins out capital to be able to sustain the mission, or is a good way to get into some areas you can't get into. So anyhow, we're funding these, and we're looking at this, and I'm going, these are some of the most innovative people on the planet. And being able to bridge what's going on in the frontier of the missions world and what's going on in, incubators and startup labs and, in bedrooms as people are dreaming up new businesses, there's a lot of parallels there. And I just love being at being involved in both, being involved in business, watching great ideas scale, and then being involved in missions and watching great ideas scale and be replicated. And so to me, this is something where there's not a whole lot of difference between the business world and the missions world, at least from my perspective of growth and innovation and all of that. And I just want to say, to everyone listening in, if you haven't gotten engaged in what's going on in the Christian missions world, or if you think it's the same old sleepy things that have been going on for 50 years, take a look. It really, really is powerful. I could spend the rest of the podcast telling incredible stories. You can learn more about some of the stuff we've done at kingdomfund.com. But yeah, this is what's really animating me right now and actually fueling. I just got done with my quarterly planning day yesterday, and it's kind of driving some tweaks that I'm excited to be making in my career here in the months and year to come. But I look at this and go, let's figure out a way to get innovation in the business world, and in the missions world, let's figure out a way to get businesses scaling, and let's just generate resources so that good things can happen out of that.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm the same way. I started doing mission trips 4 or 5 years ago, and got linked to an organization in Guatemala called Transforming Futures, and
fantastic.
Been down there a few times, but yeah, I'm always trying to see how I can think and brainstorm with them to be innovative. And it's just so you get those creative juices flowing, and it's just so great. But there's not a lot of difference between the business world and that. A great friend of mine, he is a missionary, and he's getting ready to move his family to Puerto Rico. He's been in Young Life, the organization Young Life, for a long time. But he's given me, we'll sit down and he'll give me so many great leadership ideas that I take in the business world. And he's a missionary, which there's just so many
fantastic
great things, just parallels. So thank you for that. Thank you for your guys' mission. I'm going to check that out too. And you guys listening should as well. Darrell, this episode's been awesome. I thank you so much. Anything that you want to just kind of leave our audience with? I know you have your book, you have your toolkit, but what do you kind of want to live, that last nugget, that last piece of advice to our audience before the show ends?
Thank you, Brett. It's been so much fun having this conversation. And if you do want any of those resources we talked about, text word revenue to 21,000 or go to revenuegrowthengine.com. You know, I have got a concept that's rattling around in my head right now. And I think this kind of sums up the whole concept, and that's growth for impact. So there's a lot of reasons to grow a business. And there's a lot of things that can motivate the work required to grow a business. And it's not easy to grow a business. It takes work. But you can grow a business so you can have, the second or third home, or the add more garages and fill them up with more cars and all those things. And you can do that to leave a legacy for your family. But to me, the real thing that motivates growth, because at some point that stuff's going to be empty. We all know that, right? We all know that that's a bottomless well. But if you can grow with purpose, I call it growth for impact. If you can say, okay, we're going to grow this business and we're going to make an impact with it, both on our team and on the world and our customers and our shareholders. Those are the 4 dimensions of growth for impact. If we can do that, to me, that's the purpose that's going to drive all of this. And I got to be a part this past spring of Davin Salvagno, a new friend of mine who is one of the spearheads the Purpose Summit, which I highly recommend to everybody. And, what I recognized as I was leaving that Purpose Summit last May is that there needs to be, if you don't have a purpose behind what you're doing when you get up in the morning. And for years, I was in business just to make money and be successful in business. And I kind of had that firewalled from my personal life and what I was doing in my church and all of that. But when I realized that what I do in business has a kingdom impact and can have a massive kingdom impact, it started reframing and lighting a fire under me, which is animating the work it takes to be able to grow. But growth is good if it's designed for impact. And so if you've got a heart for impact, I just want to say it, as I say at the end of every episode of the Revenue Growth Podcast, let's get going and let's get growing.
I love that. I love that. Thanks, Darrell, so much. We're going to put all of the links on our show notes on our YouTube channel, guys. So check that out. And that's a wrap with Darrell Amy. Thank you, Darrell. God bless you, buddy.
You too, man. Thank you.